And will she find her friend? Asked the reindeer. Yes, Kai is with the Snow Queen, but he is wholly in her power. He thinks he is happy and content. His heart is frozen, and he cannot see the truth because he has a sliver of the sorcerer's mirror in his eye. The reindeer gasped at the news. Everyone knew and feared the power of the sorcerer's mirror. But can't you give her some strength or some weapon to help her release Kai? Pleaded the reindeer. Don't you understand? She is a weapon, stated the Finn woman firmly. Don't you see how powerful she already is? In only her dress and her bare feet, she's come 1,000 miles through bitter experience with only her innocence and belief to guide her. The reindeer still looked doubtful. Tell me, continued the Finn woman, why did you run all this way over for frozen wastelands? To help Gerda, replied the reindeer firmly. But why? Persisted the Finn woman. You hardly know her. Because the reindeer was about to argue. Then he looked into the Finn woman's wise old eyes and bowed his head again. I think I understand, he said. The Finn woman smiled at him and patted his head. Briskly, she got to her feet, all business again. Come now, she cried, clapping her hands. Time to be off. Without another word, she lifted Gerda from the floor and put her on the reindeer's back. She clicked her fingers, and once again they were outside. It was still dark. They were so far north that it was hardly any daytime in the winter. With a smack to the reindeer's flank, she sent him off shooting northwards, Gerda clinging to his back as he sped through the snow. It was not long before they came to the bush with the red berries, and the reindeer slid Gerda gently off his back. I must leave you here, he told her, and his eyes filled with tears at the thought of the defenseless little girl alone in the wintry wild. Gerda, too, was crying. The reindeer leant down and wiped away her tears with his gentle nose and planted a kiss on her forehead with his soft lips. Then he turned and started back southwards, for he could not bear to say goodbye. The cold was piercing, and Gerda was numb to the bone. She looked ahead of her for the first time. In front of her was the Snow Queen's palace. Shining blue against the white of the snow, it pierced the skyline with stalagmite towers and turrets of ice. The reflection from the northern lights still flashing overhead glinted and flashed on the ice-paned windows. Gerda stumbled forward through the snowdrifts, for she knew she was close to the end of her journey. The night sky was clear, but there still seemed to be snowflakes falling. Gerda remembered looking at the snowflakes through a magnifying glass with Kai and wondering at the different shapes and sizes. The flakes were bigger than any she had seen at home, and they were growing. As each flake landed, it would expand and form itself into strange shapes. Gerda saw a wolf-shaped flake and some like fat bears. There were birds and hedgehogs and snakes too, and they were all tumbling towards Gerda, tumbling and lurching. They converged on Gerda as she staggered 1 foot at a time across the snow. They were the Snow Queen's guards. Gerda's heart hammered in her chest. Her mouth was dry with fear. She was exhausted and hungry and lost. She wanted so much just to lie down in the snow and go to sleep. It was no use. The Snow Queen had won. As she sank back to her knees and prayed, she heard a voice in her head. I'll catch that giant flake and put her on the fire. She won't be so scary then. It was Kai. Kai would never give in so easily. Gerda lifted her head and shouted defiantly at the monster snowflakes whirling around her. As she shouted, Gerda's breath misted in the cold air. The mist hung for a moment in front of her and drifted away. As it moved towards the snowflake guards, the mist formed itself into a shape. It was the reindeer, just like her friend. The mist reindeer tossed its antlers at a guard, and the snowflake fell apart in a puff of white dust. Gerda cheered, and another misty shape came forth. Soon she was surrounded by phantoms made with her own breath. The little robber girl was there with her dagger. So were the prince and princess with their hunting bows. The raven and his love pecked at the monsters with their sharp beaks, and the lap lady smacked the snowflakes with a huge piece of cod, and the misty Finn woman just clicked her fingers, and the guards melted. All of them moved against the snow guards, melting and breaking them, clearing a path for Gerda to plow onwards through the snowstorm. One of the mist shapes formed itself into Kai's grandmother's likeness and rubbed at Gerda's hands and feet to keep them warm. Stirred and heartened, Gerda marched on to the Snow Queen's palace. Stay tuned for our final chapter, Chapter 7.